Chosen one, why does Wednesday feel different to you already? Why have you been waking up at 3 a.m. with your chest tight, sensing something but not knowing what? Why does it feel like invisible hands have been rearranging pieces of your life while you sleep? Listen to me very carefully. Heaven placed a mark on this Wednesday. Not next month, not someday. This Wednesday. And if your spirit is trembling right now as you hear these words, if something inside you just stirred awake, it's because the shift has already begun in the unseen realm. You are not stumbling onto this message by accident. For weeks now, maybe months, you've felt it. That strange heaviness that sits on your shoulders even when nothing's technically wrong. Those silent nights when God felt impossibly close but said nothing. That restlessness in your bones, like you're standing on the edge of something massive, but you can't see what's coming. My dear friend, your name has been whispered in heaven, spoken over, marked, set apart for this exact Wednesday. And here's what most people will never understand. God doesn't shift your life on random days. He moves you on appointed days. Days that have been circled in eternity before you ever took your first breath. Days that carry weight. Days that split time into before and after. This Wednesday will not arrive like a normal day. It carries a shift, a divine interruption that will rewrite the next chapter of your story. Doors you stopped knocking on will swing open. Prayers you stopped praying will be answered out loud. Promises you buried under disappointment will rise from the grave. And some of you, I need you to hear this, some of you are about to see a breakthrough that should have taken 10 years happen in one moment. One phone call, one conversation, one divine encounter that changes everything. Before we go deeper, I want to thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just giving, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let the Spirit lead your heart. Now, if you feel your spirit responding, if something inside you just said, "Yes, this is for me," type, "I'm ready" in the comments right now. Let heaven see your yes. Let the angels take notice. Because what happens next requires one thing from you. Agreement. Wednesday is coming. And it's bringing your name with it. Why are you still here? After everything that tried to break you, after the hospital stays, the funerals, the nights you couldn't sleep because the bills didn't add up, why are you still breathing? Do you really think that was luck? My dear friend, sit with me for a moment, because what I'm about to tell you will change the way you see every hard thing you've walked through, every tear, every fear, every moment you thought God had forgotten your address. You've been in a battle you didn't even know was happening. And before this Wednesday ever arrives, before the blessing breaks open, before the door swings wide, before the answer shows up, you need to understand something that will shake you to your core. You already won. Let me take you back to that year when the doctor's report came in and the words felt like a death sentence. Back to the morning you woke up and your spouse's side of the bed was cold and empty, and you realized loneliness has a weight that presses on your chest like stone. Back to the kitchen table where you sat with bills spread out like accusations, doing math that never added up, whispering prayers that felt like they hit the ceiling and fell back down. You remember those moments, don't you? The ones that should have destroyed you, the ones that did destroy others. But somehow, you're still standing. That wasn't coincidence, beloved. That was warfare. Invisible, violent, spiritual. And you survived it not because you were strong enough, but because heaven refused to let the enemy finish what he started. The Bible tells us in Ephesians 6:12, "We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world." You thought you were just dealing with sickness, just dealing with loss, just dealing with money problems. But behind every one of those attacks was a calculated attempt to stop you from reaching this Wednesday. Let me say that again. The enemy tried to kill you before you could arrive at the very day God marked for your breakthrough. Think about the tree that grows alone in the hidden forest. No gardener tends it, no one waters it. Storms come, winds that would snap younger trees in half. Seasons change, droughts arrive, lightning strikes. But that tree, it doesn't just survive, it grows deeper roots. Its bark thickens, its branches reach higher, and when the storm finally passes, it's still standing stronger than it was before. That's you, chosen one. You are that tree. Every time life hit you, you grew deeper. Every loss taught you something about faith that comfort never could. Every financial struggle forced you to your knees, and on your knees you learned to hear God's voice above the noise of this world. Every lonely night when you cried into your pillow trained you to find company in the presence of the Almighty. You weren't just surviving, you were being prepared. But here's what breaks my heart. Here's what the enemy counted on. He hoped that by the time you reached this season this Wednesday, you would be so worn down, so tired, so convinced that nothing good was coming, that you wouldn't even recognize the blessing when it arrived. He wanted you to quit 3 days before your miracle. Psalm 34:19 says, "Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivereth him out of them all." Not some of them, all of them. Every hospital room, every betrayal, every moment you thought you couldn't go on. God was there not just watching, but fighting, blocking blows you never saw coming, rerouting disasters you'll never know were headed your way. You've been protected in ways you'll only understand when you get to heaven and see the full battlefield. Now, let me ask you something that's going to cut deep. How many times did you almost give up? How many times did you whisper, "I can't do this anymore"? How many times did you think about walking away from faith, from hope, from believing that God still had good plans for you? But you didn't. You didn't give up. And that is proof that something greater than your own willpower was holding you together. The enemy threw everything he had at you: sickness to weaken you, loss to isolate you, fear to paralyze you, doubt to convince you that God had moved on without you. But every single weapon failed, every single attack missed its mark, because heaven drew a line around your life and said, "This one is mine. Touch them, and you touch me." This Wednesday that's coming, it's not random. It's not just another day on the calendar. It's the culmination of every battle you didn't know you were winning. It's the reward for every morning you got out of bed when your body said, "Stay down." It's the open door that exists because you refused to stop knocking. The enemy tried to stop this Wednesday from ever reaching you. He tried to end your story early. He tried to convince you that your best days were behind you, that your season was over, that at your age, breakthrough doesn't happen anymore. But heaven refused to let your story end early. You are not here by accident. You are not still breathing by luck. You are not reading these words because the algorithm randomly served them to you. You are here because a battle was fought on your behalf, and you won. And now, this Wednesday, you're about to see why it was worth the fight. But here's the question that will determine everything. Now that you know a war was waged for your survival, are you ready to receive what your endurance just unlocked? You've been asking God the same question for years, haven't you? Why not me? Why not yet? Why does everyone else seem to get their breakthrough while I'm still here, waiting? And every time you ask it, the silence gets heavier. The delay feels more personal. The promise feels more distant. You've watched friends get promoted while you stayed stuck. You've seen others step into their destiny while your doors stayed locked. You've prayed prayers that seemed to evaporate before they reached heaven. But dear chosen one, what if I told you something that will shatter every bitter thought you've carried about God's timing? Delay is not denial. Let that sink deep into your spirit right now. The waiting wasn't punishment. The silence wasn't abandonment. God wasn't ignoring you, He was aligning you. Because what's coming this Wednesday required a version of you that didn't exist 3 years ago. A version that couldn't have been built through comfort. A version that only fire, pressure, and unanswered prayers could forge. Listen to me carefully. There's a reason why a surgeon doesn't operate the moment you arrive at the emergency room. He waits. He monitors. He watches your vitals, checks your heart rate, stabilizes your blood pressure, not because he doesn't care, but because he cares too much to move prematurely. He knows that the wrong timing could kill you, but the right timing saves your life. That's what heaven has been doing with you. God has been watching your heart, monitoring your faith, stabilizing your spirit, strengthening your foundation, because the blessing he's releasing this Wednesday would have crushed you 5 years ago. The door he's opening would have overwhelmed you 3 years ago. The shift he's orchestrating would have broken you 2 years ago. You weren't ready then, but you are now. Think about Joseph, 17 years old with a dream from God. Favored, anointed, marked. But what happened next? His brothers threw him in a pit, sold him into slavery. He was falsely accused, locked in prison, forgotten by everyone who could have helped him. 13 years of delay, 13 years of wondering if God's promise was real or just a cruel joke. But Genesis 41-46 tells us something stunning. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. 30, not 17. God waited 13 years, not because Joseph wasn't anointed, but because the throne required a man who had been refined by betrayal, matured by prison, and humbled by obscurity. The 17-year-old couldn't handle what the 30-year-old was built for. You've been in your prison season. You've been in your pit. You've felt forgotten, overlooked, buried alive by circumstances that made no sense. But every single moment was preparation. Every disappointment was building discernment. Every closed door was protecting you from settling too soon. Every silent night was teaching you to hear God's voice above the noise of your circumstances. And now, right now, preparation is about to meet promise. This is why Wednesday matters. This is why your spirit has been restless. This is why you've been waking up with unexplainable expectation mixed with fear. Because something inside you knows that the waiting is over. The alignment is complete. The delay has served its purpose. Moses was 80 years old when God called him from a burning bush. 80. He had spent 40 years thinking he was somebody in Pharaoh's palace, then 40 years thinking he was nobody in the wilderness. But God wasn't wasting time. He was building the only man who could stand before the most powerful ruler on earth and say, "Let my people go." Abraham waited 25 years for Isaac. Hannah waited years for Samuel. The Israelites waited 400 years for Moses. Simeon waited his entire life to see the Messiah. And every single one of them had moments where they thought God had forgotten. Moments where faith felt foolish. Moments where they wondered if the promise had expired. But it never did, and yours hasn't either. Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to understand. Your breakthrough was never late. It was scheduled. Scheduled for the exact moment when your character could carry it, your faith could sustain it, your spirit could steward it, and your testimony could magnify God through it. What felt still is about to move. What felt dead is about to resurrect. What felt impossible is about to become undeniable. And this Wednesday, this specific, marked, heaven-ordained Wednesday, is when the door swings open. Not because you earned it, not because you figured it out, but because God has been orchestrating every detail behind the scenes while you were learning to trust Him in the dark. Psalm 27-14 says, "Wait for the Lord, be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord." That word wait in Hebrew is kava. It doesn't mean passive sitting. It means to bind together, to gather strength, to twist cords into an unbreakable rope. Your waiting hasn't been empty. It's been weaving together every lesson, every tear, every whispered prayer into something so strong that when the blessing comes, nothing can pull it from your hands. You are not the same person who started this journey. You've been refined, rebuilt, rearranged from the inside out. And the version of you that exists today is finally ready for what Wednesday is bringing. So if you've waited years, maybe decades, for something to finally shift, if you've been faithful when faithfulness felt pointless, if you've held on when letting go seemed easier, type this in the comments right now. Still, I wait. Let heaven hear your declaration. Let the angels witness your faith, because the waiting is about to be rewarded in ways that will leave you breathless. Wednesday is not just another day. It's your appointed time, and everything you've survived has led you here. Dear chosen one, let me tell you something that's going to shake the foundation of everything you thought you understood about waiting. This Wednesday is not just another day on your calendar. This Wednesday is a doorway, and what's behind it is not what's behind you. For how many years have you been praying the same prayer? How many mornings have you opened your eyes and whispered, God, when? How many nights have you gone to bed carrying the same burden you woke up with, wondering if he even remembers your name? I'm here to tell you he does, and Wednesday is his answer. You see, there are moments in Scripture when time itself bends under the weight of God's decree. When Joshua stood before Jericho, heaven didn't just open a door, it collapsed an entire wall in one day. When Moses lifted his staff at the Red Sea, God didn't gradually part the waters over weeks, he split them in an instant. When Jesus spoke to Lazarus, dead for 4 days, he didn't say, eventually you'll be healed. He said, come forth, and death itself had to obey. This Wednesday carries that same authority. Right now, in the unseen realm, something is shifting. Angels are receiving new assignments. Demonic blockages that have sat over your life for decades are being removed by divine command. Heaven's scroll is turning a page, and your name is written on it. I need you to understand what's happening here. God doesn't move randomly, he moves strategically. And when he decides the season of your waiting is over, everything that held you back suddenly loses its power. On Wednesday, something that's been stuck will begin to move. That job situation that's been suffocating you, movement. That financial pressure that's kept you up at night for years, movement. That relationship that's been frozen in silence, movement. That health issue the doctors can't explain, movement. That promise God whispered to you 20 years ago that you buried under disappointment, movement. You're going to feel it like a breath returning to lungs that forgot how to inhale, like light cracking through clouds after a storm you thought would never end, like peace entering a room you didn't even know needed cleaning. But here's what most people miss, and this is critical. God doesn't just move circumstances, he moves you first. Listen to what Ezekiel saw in chapter 37. He's standing in a valley full of dry bones, dead, scattered, hopeless. And God asks him, can these bones live? Ezekiel says, Lord, only you know. Then God commands him to prophesy to the bones. And when Ezekiel speaks, the Bible says there was a noise, a rattling sound, and the bones came together. Breath entered them. They stood up, an army. Chosen one, you are those bones. You felt dead in areas of your life, scattered, hopeless. But on Wednesday, God is commanding breath to return. And when it does, you won't just survive, you'll stand, you'll rise. You'll become the warrior you were always meant to be. This is not metaphor, this is prophecy. In Ecclesiastes 3:1, Solomon writes, to everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. But what he doesn't say, what most preachers won't tell you, is that you don't always know when your season shifts. You don't get a calendar notification. You don't receive an email from heaven. You simply wake up one day, and everything is different. Wednesday is that day for you. I can feel some of you resisting this right now. Your mind is saying, I've heard this before. I've hoped before. I've believed before. And nothing changed. And that's exactly why this message found you today. Because your faith has been tested to the point of breaking, and God is saying, now is when I prove myself. Heaven doesn't waste the tears you've cried. Every prayer you thought went unanswered has been stored. Every night you wept in secret has been recorded. And on Wednesday, the compound interest on your faithfulness comes due. You're going to see doors open that you stopped knocking on. You're going to receive phone calls you stopped expecting. You're going to witness breakthroughs in areas you declared dead. And when it happens, When the shift becomes undeniable, you're going to look back at this exact moment and realize this was the turning point. But I need to ask you something, and I need you to be brutally honest with yourself. Are you ready? Are you truly ready for everything to change? Because when God moves, He doesn't ask permission. He doesn't wait for you to feel prepared. He simply says, "It's time." And the universe rearranges itself around His word. Everything changes when heaven decides the waiting is over. And beloved, your waiting is over. So here's what you need to do right now, not later. Not when you feel more spiritual. Not when doubt stops whispering right now. You need to prepare your heart for Wednesday. You need to position yourself spiritually for what's coming. Because what God is about to do requires your agreement, your expectation, your radical, unreasonable faith. The question isn't whether Wednesday will come. Wednesday is coming. The question is, will you be awake when it arrives? Beloved, let me ask you something that's been sitting heavy on your chest for weeks now. Why have the nights been so long lately? Why does 2 a.m. feel like a courtroom where every regret, every failure, every what-if gets dragged back into the light? Why does your own mind feel like it's turned against you, replaying conversations from 30 years ago, whispering that you're running out of time, convincing you that your best days are buried behind you? You thought it was just age, just loneliness, just the weight of getting older in a world that moves too fast and forgets too quickly. But what if I told you something that will change how you see everything you've been walking through? What if those sleepless nights weren't random? What if that heaviness pressing down on your spirit wasn't depression or weakness? What if every doubt, every fear, every moment you felt forgotten by God? What if all of it was spiritual warfare designed to keep you from reaching this Wednesday? Listen to me carefully, chosen one. The enemy always attacks hardest right before a breakthrough. Think about it. When have you ever felt this kind of pressure? This bone-deep exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix? This loneliness that sits in your chest even when you're surrounded by family? This quiet, gnawing fear that whispers, "You missed your moment, you're too old, it's too late"? That's not your voice. That's not God's voice. That's the voice of an enemy who knows exactly what's coming on Wednesday, and he's terrified. Scripture tells us in Ephesians 6:12, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world." You haven't been fighting a bad mood, dear one. You've been in a spiritual war. And the reason it intensified is because heaven marked you for elevation and hell saw it before you did. Let me paint you a picture. A storm always rages right before a ship reaches the shore. The waves don't get calmer as you approach land, they get wilder. The winds don't die down, they howl louder. Why? Because the enemy of that ship knows that once it reaches the harbor, the journey is over. The victory is sealed, the passengers are safe. That's you right now. You're not sinking, you're arriving. But here's what breaks my heart. So many of you have been carrying guilt for feeling the way you feel. You've been ashamed of the anxiety, embarrassed by the tears. You've hidden your struggles because you thought it meant your faith was weak, your prayers weren't working, your relationship with God was broken. No, those tears didn't go unnoticed. Every single one was collected. Psalm 56:8 says, "You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle." God didn't miss a single moment. He was watching, recording, preparing. Those sleepless nights weren't weakness, beloved. They were intercession. Your spirit was wrestling in the heavenlies while your body lay awake. You weren't abandoned in that darkness. You were being positioned, refined, strengthened for what's about to land in your life. And that emptiness you've been feeling, that was God clearing space, making room, emptying the old so he could pour in the new. Think about David. Before he ever touched a throne, he spent years running through caves, hiding from a king who wanted him dead. Anointed but not crowned, chosen but still waiting, fighting battles in the dark while everyone else forgot his name. And in those caves, when it felt like God had abandoned him, David wrote Psalm 142:4. I looked on my right hand and beheld, but there was no man that would know me. Refuge failed me. No man cared for my soul. Does that sound familiar? Have you felt that? Like no one truly sees you anymore, like your life has become invisible. But here's what David discovered in that cave, and what you're about to discover this Wednesday. The isolation wasn't rejection, it was preparation. God was removing every distraction, every false support, every counterfeit comfort, so that when the breakthrough came, David would know exactly where it came from. You weren't being attacked, chosen one. You were being prepared. Every closed door was God protecting you from settling too soon. Every delayed answer was heaven building something bigger than what you originally asked for. Every person who walked away was God clearing your circle for the ones who belong in your next chapter. Every moment you felt weak was God proving that His strength is made perfect in your weakness. 2 Corinthians 12:9 declares it plainly, My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. You didn't lose your strength, dear one. You lost your dependence on it, and that was the whole point. Because what's coming on Wednesday doesn't require your strength, it requires your surrender. It doesn't need your perfection, it needs your yes. It doesn't demand that you have it all together. It only asks that you show up broken, weary, doubtful, desperate, and let God do what only God can do. The warfare you've been walking through wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to position you. And now that you understand why the enemy fought you so hard, you need to know what he was trying to stop you from receiving. Because Wednesday isn't just another day, beloved. Wednesday is a doorway, and what's waiting on the other side will make every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt worth it. But only if you're ready to walk through it. My dear friend, let me tell you what heaven is preparing to unveil this Wednesday. And I need you to listen not just with your ears, but with that deep place in your spirit that has been waiting for this moment your entire life. This Wednesday brings clarity, not just any clarity, the kind that cuts through fog you've been living in for years, the kind that makes you look back at every confusing season and suddenly understand why it had to be that way, the kind that turns your deepest questions into your most powerful testimonies. You see, there's something God does in appointed moments that He doesn't do in ordinary time. He pulls back the curtain. He shows you what was really happening while you were crying yourself to sleep. He reveals the faces behind the betrayals. He exposes the hidden motives that you sensed but couldn't prove. And He removes swiftly, decisively, the wrong people who were never meant to stay in your story. Proverbs 4:18 says, The path of the righteous is like the morning sun, shining ever brighter till the full light of day. This Wednesday is your full light of day. The shadows lift. The deception ends. The fog clears. But here's what's going to shake you. Here's what you need to prepare your heart for right now. This Wednesday, God will show you why. Why your marriage had to end when it did. Why that job let you go after 30 years of loyalty. Why your children moved across the country and stopped calling. Why your health failed right when you thought you were finally going to rest. Why the money ran out. Why the friend you trusted turned their back. Why you've been sitting in this season that feels like winter, refusing to end. You've been asking God for answers. You've been begging Him to make sense of the pain. You've been lying awake at night replaying every decision, wondering what you did wrong. But beloved, what if you didn't do anything wrong? What if every single closed door was God's hand protecting you from something that would have destroyed you? Job sat in ashes for months, covered in boils, his children dead, his wealth gone, his wife telling him to curse God and die. And he cried out the question you've been crying, why God? Why me? But at the end of Job's story, God didn't just restore him, He showed him the purpose behind the pain. Job 42:5 records these stunning words, My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you. That's what's coming this Wednesday. Not just restoration, revelation. You're about to see God in a way you've only heard about. This Wednesday, hidden motives will be exposed. That person who smiled in your face while poisoning your name behind your back, their mask falls off. That family member who's been manipulating situations to make you look unstable, the truth comes to light. That boss who took credit for your work and made you feel invisible, heaven removes the blinders from everyone watching. This Wednesday, wrong people will be removed, not through your effort, not because you finally confronted them, but because God Himself will shift the chessboard. They will simply leave, transfer, move, disappear, and you'll look around and realize the atmosphere around you has changed overnight. This Wednesday, a burden lifts. That weight you've been carrying on your shoulders for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, the guilt, the shame, the feeling that somehow all of this was your fault, it falls off like chains breaking. You'll take a breath deeper than you've breathed in years. And here's the prophecy that's going to wreck you in the most beautiful way. This Wednesday, a long-term unanswered prayer begins turning. That thing you prayed for in 1987 and stopped believing would ever happen, it starts moving. That promise God whispered to you in 2003 that you buried under disappointment, it resurrects. That dream you had as a young woman, as a young man, before life beat you down and told you to be realistic, Wednesday breathes life back into it. Habakkuk 2-3 declares, "For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks of the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and will not delay." Your appointed time is Wednesday, and what has lingered is about to arrive with the force of heaven behind it. Now, listen to me very carefully, because this is the moment everything hinges on. God will show you why things had to happen the way they did. He will connect every dot you couldn't connect. He will reveal every reason you couldn't see. He will show you the car accident that didn't happen because you lost that job and stayed home that day. He will show you the toxic relationship you avoided because that door closed. He will show you the sickness that was coming for you that He blocked by moving you out of that environment. You're going to fall to your knees this Wednesday, not in sorrow but in awe, whispering, "God, you were protecting me the whole time." Isaiah 55:8 says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord." This Wednesday, His thoughts become clear, His ways make sense, and you finally understand that every delay was divine strategy. Right now, if you feel the fire of this word burning in your chest, if something in your spirit is saying, "Yes, this is my moment, I need you to do something powerful," type 777 inches the comments, not just as a number, as a prophetic act. 7 is the number of completion. 777 is divine intervention, heaven's signature, the mark that says what was broken is now finished and what was delayed is now released. Type 777 and claim your Wednesday. Because, beloved, you've circled this mountain long enough. The wilderness season is over, and what happens Wednesday will prove that God never forgot your name. My dear friend, we've talked about what's coming. We've felt the weight of Wednesday pressing into this moment, but now I need to speak to you about something that will determine whether you receive what heaven is releasing or whether it passes you by. Because here's the truth nobody wants to hear. God can send the miracle, but if your hands are full of the wrong things, you cannot catch it. Let me ask you something that might sting. What have you been holding on to that God keeps asking you to release? What fear have you been gripping so tightly that your fingers have gone numb? What stone have you been carrying in your palm, that heavy, cold weight of disappointment, betrayal, regret that's keeping your hand closed when God is trying to place a seed in it? You know exactly what I'm talking about. That fear that whispers, "It's too late for you." That voice that says, "You've already missed too many chances." That stone you picked up 20 years ago when someone hurt you, and you've been carrying it ever since, using it as proof that people can't be trusted, that God doesn't come through. That hope is dangerous. But chosen one, listen to me. You cannot hold a stone and a seed at the same time. One is dead weight. The other is living potential. And Wednesday is the day heaven is asking you to make a choice. Jesus said it plainly in Matthew 11:28. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. He didn't say, come to me and keep carrying everything. He said, come and I will give you rest. That means release. That means letting go. That means opening your hands and trusting that what God gives you next will be better than what you've been clutching. So here's what you must do before Wednesday arrives. First, and I mean this with everything in me, you must let go of the fear you've been holding. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, now, today, this moment. Because that fear has been sitting in your chest like a boulder, pressing on your lungs, making it hard to breathe, hard to believe, hard to expect anything good. And God is saying, I need you to release it so I can fill that space with faith. Some of you have been afraid of disappointment for so long that you've stopped hoping altogether. You've convinced yourself that if you don't expect anything, you won't be hurt. But that's not protection, beloved. That's prison. And Wednesday is your release date. Drop the stone, let it fall from your hand, feel the weight leave your fingers, and watch what God places there instead. Second, you must silence the negative voices. I know some of you are hearing voices right now that have nothing to do with God. Voices from your past. Voices from people who should have loved you better but didn't. Voices from your own mind, replaying every failure, every mistake, every moment you wish you could take back. Maybe it's your grown children who stopped calling. Maybe it's the marriage that fell apart. Maybe it's the career that never took off. Maybe it's the church that hurt you. Maybe it's your own voice, the cruelest one of all, telling you that you don't deserve what God is preparing. But Romans 8:1 cuts through all of that noise with one undeniable truth. Therefore, there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. No condemnation. Not from heaven. Not from your past. Not even from yourself. Wednesday is coming with a message louder than every lie you've believed. And you need to silence the voices that will try to drown it out. Turn off the television of regret. Mute the radio of self-blame. Close the door on the people who only show up to remind you of who you used to be. Because, chosen one, God is not interested in who you were. He is obsessed with who you're becoming. And third, this is where everything hinges. You must prepare your heart with expectation. Not hope, not wishful thinking, expectation. The kind of expectation that says, something is coming and I'm getting ready for it. The kind that clears the table before the meal arrives. The kind that opens the door before the guest knocks. Hebrews 11:1 tells us, faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. Confidence, assurance, not doubt dressed up as humility, not fear disguised as realism, but bold, unapologetic expectation that God is who He says He is and He does what He says He'll do. Heaven moves when expectation rises. It's not about demanding, it's about believing. It's about standing at the edge of Wednesday with your arms open, your heart ready, your spirit awake. Because here's the final revelation I need you to carry into Wednesday. Your miracle cannot enter a closed heart. God will not force His way into a spirit that has locked itself behind walls of cynicism, bitterness, or fear. He knocks. He waits. He calls your name. But the door opens from your side. Wednesday is the day your spirit must be open. Not guarded, not suspicious, not half-believing. Wide open, vulnerable, expectant. So tonight, before you sleep, I want you to do something. Place your hand on your chest and say out loud, God, my hands are open, my heart is ready, my spirit is expectant. Whatever you're bringing on Wednesday, I receive it. Say it until you feel it. Say it until the walls crack. Say it until expectation rises in your chest like water breaking through a dam. Because Wednesday is not just coming, Wednesday is coming for you. And the question that will determine everything is this: will you be ready to receive what heaven has been holding? Now listen to me, chosen one, because what I'm about to tell you will explain everything you've been feeling, everything that's been stirring in your spirit, everything that's kept you awake when the world around you sleeps. Your name has been spoken in the courts of heaven, not whispered, not mentioned in passing, spoken with authority, with intention, with the kind of weight that moves angels into position and shifts the atmosphere around your life before you even know it's happening. You see, there are decisions being made about your future right now, decisions you're not in the room for, conversations happening in realms you cannot see. And while you've been walking through your days, wondering if God even remembers you, wondering if your prayers are hitting the ceiling, heaven has been compiling evidence. Angels have carried reports of your endurance, every tear you cried in secret, every morning you got up when quitting made more sense, every moment you chose faith when your mind screamed doubt. The book of Malachi tells us in chapter 3, verse 16, "Then those who feared the Lord talked with each other, and the Lord listened and heard. A scroll of remembrance was written in his presence." A scroll, beloved. Your faithfulness has been documented. Your pain has been recorded. Your obedience in the dark has been written down where it matters most. And now your timeline is under divine review. That Wednesday you've been sensing, it's not just another day on the calendar, it's the day your case gets called. The day heaven says, enough waiting, enough testing, enough silence. It's the moment when what was withheld gets released, when what was delayed gets delivered, when what was denied can no longer resist you. But here's what I need you to understand, and this is where it gets deeper than most teaching you've ever heard. When your name is called in the courts of heaven, something shifts in the physical realm before you see it. You feel it first. That's what you've been experiencing. That restlessness, that tension, that sense that something is about to break open but you can't quite name it. There is movement around your name. There is favor around your name. There is protection around your name. There is purpose around your name. Do you hear me? While you've been questioning your value, heaven has been establishing it. While you've been wondering if you matter, eternity has been taking notes. While you've been sitting in that same job, that same struggle, that same financial pressure, God has been watching the way you carry yourself when no one's clapping. The way you still pray when prayers feel empty. The way you still give when your own pockets are hurting. And now, he's saying, I'm about to reward what no human eye has seen. You know what happens when heaven reviews your timeline. Doors you knocked on 5 years ago suddenly swing open. People who forgot your name suddenly remember it. Opportunities you gave up on suddenly reappear. Finances that made no sense suddenly align. Relationships that felt dead suddenly breathe again. The prophet Isaiah declared in chapter 60, verse 22, "The least of you will become 1,000, the smallest a mighty nation. I am the Lord. In its time I will do this swiftly." In its time, not in your time. Not when you planned it. Not when it made sense. But when heaven's clock strikes the appointed hour, and beloved, that hour is Wednesday, God moves swiftly. Swiftly means suddenly. Swiftly means without warning. Swiftly means you won't have time to prepare because the door opens before you finish knocking. Some of you are sitting here right now thinking, but I've been waiting so long. I've been praying the same prayer for years. What if this isn't real? Let me ask you something. Why are you still here? Why didn't you quit last year when everything fell apart? Why didn't you walk away when betrayal should have broken you? Why didn't you lose your mind when the pressure should have crushed you? Because your name was being called. Because heaven was holding you. Because angels were assigned to your case. Because God knew that Wednesday was coming, and you needed to be standing when it arrived. What was denied before can no longer resist you. Not because you became perfect, not because you finally got it all together, but because heaven decided your season of lack just ended, your season of being overlooked just expired, your season of waiting just received its notice. The door is opening, and nothing in hell or earth can hold it shut. You've been faithful in the fire, you've been steady in the storm, You've been quiet when you wanted to scream, and God saw every single moment. Now here's what I need you to do. I need you to stop rehearsing what didn't work. Stop replaying the rejection. Stop counting the years you think you lost. Because when heaven calls your name, your past becomes irrelevant. Your mistakes become testimonies. Your scars become credentials. Wednesday is not just a day. It's a divine appointment. And the only question left is this: will you show up ready to receive what God has already released? You know what breaks my heart? It's hearing from chosen ones who whisper the same question into the dark. God, did you forget me? Maybe that's you right now. Maybe you've been carrying that question for years, decades, even wondering why heaven went quiet when you needed answers the most. You prayed for your children and watched them walk away. You stood by hospital beds and heard words like terminal and irreversible. You buried your spouse of 50 years and woke up in a house that felt like a tomb. You watched younger people get promotions, miracles, open doors while you sat in the waiting room of faith, ticket number crumpled in your hand, wondering if God ever planned to call your name. Let me tell you something that's going to cut deep before it heals. That silence wasn't abandonment, it was surgery. When a surgeon operates, the patient doesn't hear explanations during the procedure. They don't get updates while the scalpel is moving. They're unconscious, unaware. And that's exactly where God needed you to be while He was rearranging the broken pieces inside your life that you couldn't see, couldn't touch, couldn't fix on your own. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." But that word still in Hebrew, Rapha, it doesn't mean peaceful stillness. It means let go. Surrender. Stop fighting. Stop trying to fix it yourself. Because what God was doing in the silence required your hands off the wheel. Dear one, heaven wasn't ignoring your prayers. Heaven was answering them in the operating room. You've been feeling forgotten. I know you have. You look around and see people half your age walking into blessings you've been praying for since before they were born. You scroll through Facebook and see grandchildren you barely know anymore, living lives that don't include you. You sit in church and wonder if anyone even notices when you're not there. You wake up some mornings and the first thought that hits you is, what's the point anymore? That heaviness you feel? That's not depression. That's labor pains. Something is being born out of your silence that could never have been conceived in noise. Let me take you to the book of Job. This man lost everything: his children, his wealth, his health, his reputation. His own wife told him to curse God and die. And for 37 chapters, Job sat in silence, covered in sores, scraping his skin with broken pottery, asking God the same question you've been asking. Why? And God didn't answer. Not immediately, not quickly, not even kindly at first. But when God finally spoke in Job 38, He didn't explain the suffering. He revealed His sovereignty. And Job, broken, humbled, emptied, said in Job 42:5, "My ears had heard of you, but now my eyes have seen you." That's what silence does. It turns hearing into seeing. It turns information into revelation. It turns believers into witnesses. You've been in the silent season because God was healing you quietly. While you thought He forgot you, He was removing bitterness you didn't even know was poisoning your prayers. He was aligning you quietly. While you felt stuck, He was shifting circumstances, rearranging people, closing doors that would have led you into more pain. He was protecting you quietly. While you felt abandoned, He was blocking attacks you never saw coming, shielding you from opportunities that looked like blessings but carried curses underneath. The silence wasn't empty, beloved. It was full of divine activity you couldn't hear because your spiritual ears were being recalibrated to recognize God's voice above every other noise. Here's what I need you to understand about Wednesday. The shift that's coming isn't random, it's timed. Ecclesiastes 3:1 says, "To everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven." Your season of silence is ending because your time of purpose is beginning. And what's about to happen on Wednesday is the unveiling of everything God was building while you thought He was gone. That son who stopped calling, God's been working on his heart in the quiet, that financial pressure that's been crushing you. Heaven's been rerouting provision you can't see yet, that diagnosis the doctors can't explain. God's been rewriting medical reports in the courts of heaven, that loneliness that sits beside you at the dinner table. Wednesday is bringing connection you stopped believing was possible. You didn't hear God because he was too busy orchestrating the answer to speak about it yet. Think about Lazarus. He died. Jesus didn't show up for 4 days. 4 days of silence while Mary and Martha wept, buried their brother, and wondered where their friend was. But when Jesus finally arrived, he didn't apologize for being late. He said in John 11:4, "This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God." The silence wasn't cruelty, it was set up, because resurrections require death first. And your resurrection requires the death of everything you've been clinging to that God never intended for you to carry. Heaven's silence was preparation for Wednesday's revelation. So let me ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly in your spirit. What if the silence wasn't God punishing you, but positioning you? What if every unanswered prayer was him saying, "Not yet," because not yet meant something better? What if Wednesday isn't just another day, but the day your silent season finally speaks? Because something's about to break open that's been sealed for years, and you're going to look back at this moment and realize that the silence was never the enemy. It was the womb. Now, my dear friend, let me tell you something that's going to shake you awake. This Wednesday isn't going to announce itself with trumpets or thunder. It's going to whisper. And if you're not paying attention, if you're distracted by the noise of this world, you'll miss the most sacred moment of your entire year. But I'm not going to let that happen, because God has already begun preparing your spirit to recognize what's coming. And the signs, the signs are already appearing. Some of you have been experiencing them for days now without realizing what they meant. You thought it was just you. You thought you were imagining things. But no, beloved, heaven has been conditioning your soul to receive what Wednesday is about to release. Here's what you need to watch for. Here's what will confirm that this word is not just inspiration, it's activation. The first thing you'll notice is a sudden peace when you wake up. Not the kind of peace that comes from good news or solved problems. This is different. This is the peace that makes no logical sense. You'll open your eyes Wednesday morning, and before your feet touch the floor, before your mind starts running through the day's worries, there will be a stillness in your chest that wasn't there the night before. The Bible calls it the peace that surpasses all understanding in Philippians 4-7. It doesn't come from circumstances, it comes from the presence of God settling over your life like a blanket. Some of you will feel a burden lifting without explanation. That weight you've been carrying for months, maybe years, the one you stopped talking about because nobody seemed to understand it's going to dissolve. Not slowly, suddenly. You won't be able to point to a moment or a prayer or a conversation that fixed it. It will just be gone. And you'll stand there wondering if you're allowed to feel this light, this free, this unburdened. Yes, dear one, you are. Because Wednesday is the day God lifts what you were never meant to carry. Watch for this too. A long-term fear dissolving. That fear that's been whispering lies in your ear for decades. The fear of dying alone. The fear that your children won't be okay. The fear that you wasted your life. The fear that God is disappointed in you. On Wednesday, that voice will go silent, not because you fought it, but because God will replace it with His voice. And His voice doesn't condemn. It doesn't accuse. It says, "You are mine. You are seen. You are loved beyond measure." You'll also notice a strange clarity in decision-making. Things that confused you last week will suddenly make perfect sense. Choices you've been wrestling with for months will become obvious. Doors you weren't sure about will either slam shut or swing wide open, and you'll know which one is which without agonizing over it. Proverbs 3-5-6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight." Wednesday is the day your path gets straightened. And here's where it gets deeply personal. Some of you are going to feel a sensation you haven't felt in years, the feeling of being guided. You'll walk into a room and know you're supposed to be there. You'll pick up the phone and the exact person you needed to hear from will be on the other end. You'll open your Bible and the verse you land on will be the answer you've been crying out for. This isn't luck. This isn't coincidence. This is God's hand on your life, becoming so tangible you can't deny it anymore. Pay attention to your dreams. Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, something is going to resurface, a memory you thought was buried, a promise God spoke to you 30 years ago that you let go of because it seemed impossible, a vision of who you used to believe you could become before life beat you down. Wednesday is the day God pulls forgotten things out of the grave and says, I never forgot, and it's not too late. And perhaps the most powerful sign of all, a long-lost hope returning. That thing you stopped praying for because disappointment hurt too much. That miracle you stopped believing in because time ran out. That dream you buried with your spouse, your health, your youth. On Wednesday, hope is going to knock on your door again. And this time, it's not coming to tease you. It's coming to stay. Now listen to me very carefully. These are not coincidences. They are confirmations. Each one is God's way of saying, I see you, I hear you, and I am moving on your behalf right now. You've been asking God for proof that He hasn't forgotten you. You've been begging for a sign that your prayers still matter. You've been wondering if you still have purpose at this age, in this season, with this much life behind you and so little ahead. Wednesday is your answer. But here's what most people miss, and this is critical. Signs mean nothing if you don't respond to them. Recognition without response is just observation, and God is not giving you signs so you can observe them like a tourist watching fireworks. He's giving you signs so you can move with Him. So, what do you do when you feel that peace? You thank Him out loud. What do you do when that burden lifts? You declare it's gone and refuse to pick it back up. What do you do when fear dissolves? You step into the very thing you were afraid of. What do you do when hope returns? You speak life over it. You water it. You protect it. You let it grow. Because Wednesday isn't just about what God does to you. It's about what God does through you when you finally believe you're still chosen. Now let me tell you what's really been happening to you these past few weeks. Because if you've been feeling like you're losing your mind, if anxiety has been choking you for no logical reason, if old wounds you thought were healed suddenly started bleeding again, you need to understand this wasn't random. You've been under attack. Not the kind of attack the world can see. Not the kind that shows up on a doctor's report or a bank statement. I'm talking about spiritual warfare so precise, so calculated, so vicious that it could only mean one thing. Hell saw what heaven was preparing for you this Wednesday. Think about it. Just when you started to feel a shift coming, just when something in your spirit whispered that breakthrough was near, that's exactly when everything got worse, didn't it? The fear came out of nowhere. The doubt got louder. The memories you buried 10 years ago climbed out of the grave and started screaming your name at 2 a.m. Relationships that were fine suddenly felt fragile. Money that was stable suddenly felt uncertain. Health that was holding steady suddenly felt threatened. And you sat there wondering, God, why now? Why is everything falling apart right when I thought you were about to show up? My dear friend, let me tell you something that will change how you see every battle you've ever fought. The enemy always fights hardest when the door is about to open. Look at the children of Israel. For 430 years they were slaves in Egypt. 430 years. And Pharaoh didn't lose sleep over it. But the exact moment God told Moses it was time for deliverance, what happened? Pharaoh lost his mind. He increased their labor. He withheld their supplies. He made their lives unbearable right before their exodus. Why? Because darkness always panics when light is approaching. You see it again in the book of Nehemiah. The wall around Jerusalem had been broken for decades. Nobody cared. But the moment Nehemiah showed up with a vision to rebuild it, opposition came from every direction. Mockery, threats, sabotage. Nehemiah 4:8 says, "They all plotted together to come and fight against Jerusalem and stir up trouble against it." The attack didn't come when the wall was broken. The attack came when the wall was being rebuilt. Do you hear what I'm telling you? Hell didn't attack you because you were failing. Hell attacked you because heaven advanced. That sudden wave of depression that hit you 2 weeks ago, that wasn't you backsliding. That was the enemy trying to convince you to quit 3 feet from gold. That panic attack that came out of nowhere, that wasn't mental illness, that was spiritual interference trying to cloud your clarity right before the fog lifts. That argument with someone you love, that wasn't bad communication. That was a distraction designed to make you focus on conflict instead of what God is about to release. Chosen one, listen to me closely now. When the warfare intensifies, it's not because you're losing, it's because you're about to win. Job chapter 1 tells us something most people miss. Before God restored Job's life double, before he got back everything he lost plus more, Satan had to ask permission to touch him. Job 1:12. The Lord said to Satan, "Very well then, everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself do not lay a finger." The attack was permitted because the promotion was guaranteed. You didn't fall into chaos by accident, you were pushed into it strategically. Because if the enemy could get you to give up now, right now, he could stop what's about to break open on Wednesday. If he could convince you that God forgot about you, that your prayers aren't working, that nothing's going to change, then he could steal the very moment heaven has been building toward. But you're still here, you're still listening, you're still standing, and that alone tells me something powerful. The war didn't work. Hell threw everything it had at you, and you're still breathing. You're still believing. You're still pressing forward, even when your heart wanted to quit. That's not strength, beloved. That's anointing. That's the mark of someone heaven refuses to let fall. Jesus said it in Luke 22:31-32. "Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift all of you as wheat. But I have prayed for you, Simon, that your faith may not fail." Even when the enemy came after Peter, Jesus had already interceded. And right now, even when hell has been coming after you, heaven has been interceding on your behalf. So let me ask you this. What if every setback was actually a setup? What if every attack was proof that something massive is about to manifest? What if the reason you've been fighting so hard is because what you're about to receive is worth fighting for? You weren't failing, chosen one. You were crossing from wilderness into promise, from delay into destiny, from waiting into manifestation. And the enemy knew that if he could stop you in the crossing, he could keep you from the landing. But it didn't work. You made it. You're here, and Wednesday is coming whether hell likes it or not. Now here's what you need to understand about what happens next, because the breakthrough coming isn't just going to change your circumstances, it's going to change you. Now, listen closely, chosen one, because what I'm about to tell you will explain why your heart has been pounding since this message started. Wednesday is not just another day on your calendar. It's a release date, a divine unlock. And when it arrives, 3 specific areas of your life that have been sealed shut, frozen in place for years, are going to break wide open. Let me speak directly into the first one. Some of you have been carrying emotional weight so heavy that you've forgotten what peace feels like. You wake up tired. You go to bed exhausted. And somewhere between those 2 moments, you smile, you function, you push through, but inside, you're drowning. Depression you can't name. Grief that won't leave. Trauma you buried but never healed. You've prayed. You've cried. You've asked God 1,000 times, "When will this lift?" And heaven heard every single word. Psalm 34:18 says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." Close, not distant, not watching from far away. Close, right there in the room with you when you couldn't breathe. Right there when you wanted to give up. But here's what's shifting this Wednesday. God is about to place a key in your hand, one that fits every locked door in your life. And the first door it will open is the one you've been standing in front of the longest, the door to your own heart. The door you've kept closed because opening it felt too dangerous, too painful, too raw. This Wednesday, God is going to walk you through that door, and when you step inside, you won't find more pain. You'll find healing you didn't know was possible. The kind that doesn't just cover the wound, it removes the scar. The kind that doesn't just numb the ache, it restores the joy you thought was gone forever. Some of you are going to wake up Thursday morning and realize something broke off in the night. The heaviness lifted, the darkness cleared, the whispers in your mind went silent. And you'll absolutely know that Wednesday was the day God said, "Enough, my child has suffered long enough." Now let me speak to the second breakthrough. Family. Oh beloved, I know that word alone just made your chest tighten, because for some of you, family isn't warmth, it's wounds. It's years of silence. It's children who stopped calling. It's siblings who chose sides. It's a spouse who's in the same house but feels 1,000 miles away. You've tried everything. You've apologized for things that weren't your fault. You've extended olive branches that were left on the table. You've held on when everyone told you to let go. And you're tired, bone deep, tired of being the only one fighting for connection. But Malachi 4:6 declares something that will shake you. He will turn the hearts of the parents to their children and the hearts of the children to their parents. Turn, not suggest, not encourage. Turn. That's not negotiation, that's divine intervention. That's God reaching into stone-cold hearts and making them beat warm again. This Wednesday carries an anointing for reconciliation, for restoration, for conversations you thought would never happen. And I need you to understand this won't be because someone suddenly decided to act right. This will be because heaven decided it was time. Time for walls to crumble, time for pride to break, time for relationships that died to resurrect. What refused to move for years will move in days. That son who hasn't spoken to you in 3 years, he's going to call. That daughter who blamed you for everything, she's going to soften. That marriage that's been cold as ice, warmth is coming back, not because of therapy, not because of time, because of Wednesday. And here's the third door that's about to unlock provision. My dear friend, I know you're exhausted from trying to stretch $20 into $200. I know you've been robbing Peter to pay Paul for so long, you can't remember what financial peace feels like. I know you've wondered if God sees the bills piling up, the calls you're avoiding, the shame you carry every time you have to say no to your grandchildren. But Philippians 4:19 is not a suggestion, it's a promise. And my God will meet all your needs according to the riches of His glory in Christ Jesus. All your needs, not some, not most, all. And not according to your bank account, your retirement fund, or your social security check. According to His riches, His endless, bottomless, inexhaustible supply. This Wednesday is a financial reset. Money you've been waiting on is going to release. Checks that were delayed are going to arrive. Opportunities you didn't apply for are going to appear. Someone is going to say yes who's been saying no. And when it lands, when it hits your account, when it shows up in your mailbox, you're going to know this wasn't luck, this wasn't timing. This was God keeping His word. But here's what you need to understand, chosen one. These 3 breakthroughs, emotional healing, family reconciliation, financial provision, they're not coming because you earned them. They're coming because Wednesday has been marked, circled, appointed. And when God appoints a day, hell itself cannot cancel it. So let me ask you something that will determine everything. Are you ready to receive what you stopped believing could happen? Are you ready to let go of the bitterness that's been protecting you? Are you ready to step into a version of your life that doesn't match your past? Because Wednesday is coming, and it's bringing keys you've been praying for. But the question heaven is asking right now is this: will you be ready to use them? Chosen one. As we close this sacred moment together, I need you to carry 3 truths with you into Wednesday and beyond. First, this Wednesday is marked. Heaven has circled it. Your breakthrough, whether it's emotional healing, family reconciliation, or financial provision, is not a maybe. It's an appointment already scheduled in eternity. Second, the keys God is placing in your hand are not just for unlocked doors. They're for closed chapters, buried dreams, and prayers you thought He forgot. What refused to move for years will move in days. Third, and hear me clearly, you are not walking this path alone. The God who placed this message in your hands at this exact moment is still working in your life right now. While you've been waiting, He's been arranging. While you've been wondering, He's been moving. And right here, in this community of believers, you have thousands of souls who understand your journey, who carry the same calling, and who are ready to pray with you, stand with you, and believe with you. So let me ask you this. Now that you know Wednesday is not just another day, now that you understand, heaven has been preparing this moment specifically for you, what will you do with that knowledge? Will you step forward in faith, or will you let doubt steal what God has already released? Before you go, I want to pray over you, not a casual prayer, a deep, powerful prayer that reaches into the core of who you are. Father, I place my hand on the shoulder of every person hearing these words right now. You see them, you know their name. You've counted every tear, every sleepless night, every moment they wanted to quit but didn't. Lord, I ask you to move mightily this Wednesday. Break open what's been closed. Heal what's been broken. Restore what's been lost. Release provision where there's been lack. Reconcile families that have been fractured. Lift burdens that have crushed spirits for far too long. Let them feel your presence so powerfully that doubt has no room to breathe. Surround them with favor. Order their steps. Open doors no man can shut. And remind them every single day that they are chosen, seen, and deeply loved. In Jesus' mighty name, Amen. Now, I need to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, what are you believing God for this Wednesday? What breakthrough are you standing on? And if this message stirred something in your spirit, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Someone in your life is waiting for this exact word. Be the vessel that carries it to them. Thank you for staying with me through this entire message. Thank you for opening your heart and letting God speak. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. We're building a family here, a community of chosen ones who refuse to walk alone. Wednesday is coming, beloved, and so is your breakthrough. Walk in faith. Walk in power. Walk knowing that heaven is moving on your behalf. God bless you mightily.